I never believed in second chances until she walked through that restaurant door. The woman my neighbor had set me up with as a joke turned out to be the plot twist my life desperately needed. I pause, adjusting my 5-year-old daughter's hair clip as she sits on my lap. And that, my friends, is how our family story began. If you're enjoying this journey so far, please hit that like button and subscribe to follow our story. Trust me, what happens next changed everything. 3 years ago, I was drowning. Not literally, but in every other sense of the word. My name is Daniel Mitchell, and at 34, I was a single father to my daughter Emma, working remotely as a software developer, and barely keeping my head above water. My wife had left us when Emma was just 8 months old, deciding that motherhood and marriage weren't for her after all. The note she left simply said, "I can't do this anymore. I'm sorry." No forwarding address, no explanation beyond those 7 words that shattered our world. For the first year, I operated on pure survival instinct. Wake up, feed Emma, work while she napped, play with her, bathe her, put her to sleep, then collapse into bed myself, only to repeat it all the next day. My parents lived 3 states away, and while they visited when they could, the day-to-day reality was just Emma and me against the world. By the time Emma turned 4, we had settled into a routine. I had converted our spare bedroom into a home office, found a reliable daycare, and even managed to occasionally shower and eat proper meals. Progress, right? But something was missing. Not just the companionship of another adult, but the feeling of being seen. Of someone looking at me and recognizing the man beneath the perpetually tired eyes and baby food-stained t-shirts. That's where Rick comes in. My next-door neighbor, a 60-something retired postal worker with too much time on his hands and an opinion on everything. Rick had appointed himself as my unofficial life coach, constantly offering unsolicited advice on everything from lawn care to my love life, especially my love life. "Daniel, my boy," he'd say, leaning over our shared fence while I attempted to mow the lawn with Emma strapped to my back in a carrier. "You can't keep living like this. That little girl needs a mother figure, and you need someone to remind you that you're more than just a dad." I'd smile politely and nod, having heard this speech at least once a week for the past 3 years. But this particular Saturday, Rick had a different gleam in his eye. "I've got someone for you to meet," he announced triumphantly. "Rick, we've been through this. I don't have time to date." "Make time," he insisted. "My wife's niece is coming to town next weekend. She's about your age, smart as a whip, and easy on the eyes too." He winked, and I suppressed a groan. "I appreciate the thought, but..." "No buts. I've already told her about you. Dinner, next Saturday, 7 p.m. at Bellini's. I'll watch The Little Princess." Before I could protest further, Rick had retreated into his house, leaving me standing there with a half-mowed lawn and a sinking feeling in my stomach. Throughout the week, Rick kept dropping hints about this mystery woman, Sarah, her name was. How she was just perfect for me, how she loved kids, how she had the most delightful laugh. By Friday, I was convinced this was some elaborate practical joke. Sarah was probably either imaginary or the complete opposite of everything Rick described. "It's a joke date, Emma Bean," I told my daughter as I tucked her in Friday night. "Grandpa Rick thinks he's being funny." Emma looked at me with those serious blue eyes she'd inherited from her mother. "Maybe she'll be nice, Daddy. Maybe she'll like dinosaurs like me." I smiled and kissed her forehead. "Maybe she will, sweetheart. But don't get your hopes up, okay? It's just dinner with a stranger." Saturday arrived, and with it, a knot of anxiety in my stomach that wouldn't go away. I couldn't remember the last time I'd been on a date. What did people even talk about these days? Politics? The weather? The rising cost of daycare? I stood in front of my closet, realizing with dismay that most of my clothes were either work-appropriate button-downs or t-shirts with cartoon characters that Emma had picked out. I finally settled on a blue shirt that my sister had given me last Christmas, still with the tags on. "You look handsome, Daddy," Emma declared as I emerged from my bedroom. "Thank you, Princess. Are you sure you're okay staying with Grandpa Rick and Grandma Judy tonight?" She nodded enthusiastically. "Grandma Judy said we can make cookies." At 6:45, I dropped Emma off next door, enduring Rick's knowing smirk and last-minute advice, "Compliment her eyes, women love that," before heading to Bellini's, the only semi-fancy restaurant in our small town. I arrived early, choosing a table near the back where I could see the door. My palms were sweating, and I kept checking my phone, half hoping for a cancellation text from this mysterious Sarah. None came. At exactly 7 o'clock, the restaurant door opened, and a woman walked in. She paused, scanning the room, and our eyes met. Time didn't stop, the world didn't fade away, and angels didn't sing, all those clichés you hear about. Instead, something much more profound happened. I felt seen for the first time in years. Sarah wasn't what I expected. Rick had described her as if she'd stepped out of a magazine, but the woman who approached my table was refreshingly real. She had curly brown hair cut in a practical bob, glasses that kept sliding down her nose, and a smile that transformed her entire face. She wore a simple green dress and flat shoes, and carried a worn leather messenger bag instead of a purse. "Daniel?" she asked, extending her hand. "I'm Sarah. I believe we've been set up by my well-meaning but extremely subtle uncle." Her handshake was firm, her voice warm with a hint of amusement. I found myself smiling back. "That would be Rick. Please, sit down. I hope you didn't feel obligated to come." She slid into the chair across from me. "Actually, I was curious. Uncle Rick has been talking about his superhero neighbor for months now. The single dad who codes by day and raises a delightful little genius by night." I felt my face heat up. "He exaggerates. I'm just doing my best, like any parent." "Which is exactly what makes it impressive," she said, opening her menu. "So, shall we get the awkward first date questions out of the way? Or would you prefer to pretend we're both international spies meeting for a covert information exchange?" I laughed, genuinely laughed, for what felt like the first time in forever. The spy scenario sounds more interesting, but I'm afraid my cover would be blown the moment I mentioned dinosaurs or princess movies. "Ah, but that could be the perfect cover," she countered. "No one suspects the dad who can recite Frozen from memory." Dinner flew by. Sarah, I learned, was a children's librarian who had recently moved to a town about 30 minutes away. She loved books, obviously, hiking, and had a weakness for bad sci-fi movies. She asked about Emma with genuine interest, not the polite obligation I'd come to expect from dates in the past. "What's her favorite book?" Sarah wanted to know. "Dragons Love Tacos," I answered immediately. "We've read it so many times I see dragons and tacos in my sleep." Sarah's eyes lit up. "Excellent choice. The sequel doesn't quite capture the magic of the original, though." "There's a sequel?" She looked at me with mock horror. "Oh, we need to remedy this immediately. Dragons Love Tacos 2, the sequel. It involves time travel and a taco shortage. Essential reading." By dessert, a shared tiramisu that Sarah insisted was, for research purposes, I realized I hadn't checked my phone once. I hadn't worried about Emma, or work, or any of the thousand anxieties that usually occupied my mind. I had simply been present, enjoying the company of this fascinating woman who somehow made me feel both completely at ease and wonderfully alive. When the check came, we both reached for it. "Please, let me," I said. "It's the least I can do after you endured Rick's matchmaking." She tilted her head, studying me. Was it really such an endurance test? I met her gaze. "No. Not at all. In fact, I'd like to do it again sometime. If you want to, that is." "I'd like that," she said softly. "But next time, I pick the place." And maybe. She hesitated, maybe Emma could join us? I know a great kid-friendly cafe with the best hot chocolate in the state. The suggestion caught me off guard. Most women I'd attempted to date had wanted to keep my daughter at arm's length, at least initially. But Sarah seemed genuinely interested in meeting Emma. She'd love that, I said, surprised by the emotion suddenly tightening my throat. We walked to our cars together, the night air cool against my skin. At her car, an older model Subaru covered in bumper stickers from national parks, she turned to face me. Thank you for tonight, Daniel. It wasn't at all the awkward setup I was expecting. Thank you for taking a chance on Rick's superhero neighbor, I replied. She smiled, then reached up and gently kissed my cheek. Tell Emma I can't wait to discuss dinosaurs with her. I drove home in a daze, a strange lightness in my chest that I hadn't felt in years. When I picked up Emma from Rick and Judy's, my neighbor took one look at my face and broke into a triumphant grin. Told you she was perfect, he said smugly. For once, I didn't mind his interference. She wants to meet Emma, I told him, still somewhat disbelieving. Rick's expression softened. Of course she does. Sarah's good people, Daniel. Always has been. The next morning, I received a text from Sarah, just checking that last night wasn't a collective hallucination. Still up for that hot chocolate date with you and the dinosaur expert? And so began the next chapter of our story. Sarah met Emma the following weekend at the promised cafe. I was nervous. Emma had never met anyone I'd dated, mainly because there hadn't been anyone worth introducing her to. But my worries dissolved as I watched Sarah kneel down to Emma's level, solemnly shaking her hand and asking which dinosaur was the absolute best. T-Rex, Emma declared confidently. Solid choice, Sarah nodded. Though personally, I'm partial to Triceratops. Very underrated. Emma considered this seriously. They have 3 horns, she conceded. That's pretty cool. From that moment, they were conspirators. Sarah pulled a small book from her bag, Dragons Love Tacos Too, and presented it to Emma with ceremony. My daughter's eyes widened with delight. Daddy! Did you know there was another one? Sarah just told me, I admitted. Should we read it tonight? Emma nodded vigorously, clutching the book to her chest. Can Sarah read it with us? I glanced at Sarah, who looked surprised but pleased. If she'd like to, I said carefully. I'd be honored, Sarah replied, her voice soft. I do all the dragon voices at story time at the library. All the voices? Emma was impressed. All of them. Even the spicy salsa voice. That sealed it. By the end of our hot chocolate date, Emma was completely enchanted, and honestly, so was I. Over the next few months, Sarah became a regular presence in our lives. She joined us for movie nights, introduced Emma to the wonders of the library where she worked, and somehow managed to make even grocery shopping feel like an adventure. She never tried to replace Emma's mother, she was too wise for that, but she created her own unique relationship with my daughter based on shared interests and genuine affection. With me, Sarah was patient. She understood when I had to cancel plans because Emma was sick, or when work deadlines kept me distracted. She respected my boundaries and never pushed for more than I was ready to give. But she also challenged me, refusing to let me hide behind my role as just a dad. You're more than Emma's father, she told me one night as we sat on my porch after Emma had gone to bed. You're Daniel. You have dreams and needs of your own. I used to, I admitted. But then life happened. She took my hand, her touch warm and grounding. Life is still happening, Daniel. And it can be beautiful if you let it. 6 months after our first date, I realized I was in love with her. It wasn't a lightning bolt moment, more like a gradual awakening, a recognition of what had been growing all along. Sarah had become essential to our lives, not because we couldn't function without her, but because everything was better when she was around. I planned to tell her on a weekend trip to the coast. Rick and Judy had offered to watch Emma, giving Sarah and me our first overnight date. I was nervous, rehearsing what I wanted to say as we drove along the scenic coastal highway. But life, as it often does, had other plans. The call came just as we were checking into our hotel. Emma had fallen while playing in Rick's backyard and had broken her arm. They were at the emergency room, and while she was okay, she was asking for me, and for Sarah. We abandoned our romantic getaway without a second thought, driving back to town in record time. When we arrived at the hospital, we found Emma in a pediatric exam room, her small arm in a temporary splint, tears dried on her cheeks but her eyes lighting up when she saw us. "Daddy! Sarah! Look!" She held up her arm proudly. "The doctor said I was super brave." I hugged her carefully, my heart still racing from the fear that had gripped me during the drive. "You are the bravest girl I know, Emma Bean." Sarah moved to Emma's other side, smoothing her hair back from her forehead. "Absolutely the bravest. And now you'll get a cool cast that everyone can sign." Emma's eyes widened. "Can I get a purple one?" "We'll definitely ask," Sarah promised. As we waited for the orthopedist to apply the cast, I watched Sarah with my daughter. She was reading a book she'd grabbed from the children's corner of the waiting room, doing all the voices just as she'd promised that day at the cafe. Emma was leaning against her, pain and fear forgotten as she lost herself in the story. In that moment, I knew. This was what family felt like. Not the perfect, Instagram-worthy version, but the real thing, showing up for each other in emergency rooms, finding joy in the midst of chaos, building something stronger than any one of us could be alone. Later that night, after we'd brought Emma home and tucked her into bed with her new purple cast proudly displayed on a pillow, Sarah and I collapsed onto my couch, emotionally drained. "I'm sorry about our weekend," I said, taking her hand. She shook her head. "Don't be. This is real life, Daniel. This is what matters." I looked at her, really looked at her. Her curly hair was a mess, her glasses slightly askew, and there was a smudge of hospital hand sanitizer on her sleeve. She was beautiful. "I love you," I said simply. I was going to tell you this weekend with some grand gesture, but I realize now that this, real life with its broken arms and hospital visits, this is us. And I love every part of it because you're here. Sarah's eyes filled with tears, but she was smiling. "I love you too. And Emma. I love our messy, wonderful life." When I kissed her, it felt like coming home. 3 months later, Sarah moved in with us. 6 months after that, on Emma's 6th birthday, I proposed, with Emma's enthusiastic blessing and assistance. Sarah said yes before I could even finish asking, and Emma cheered so loudly that Rick and Judy heard it next door and came running over, thinking something was wrong. We were married in a simple ceremony in our backyard, with Emma as our flower girl and best daughter. Rick, looking smugger than ever, gave a toast that had everyone laughing and crying in equal measure. "I knew it from the start," he declared. "Some people call it meddling. I call it having an eye for perfect matches." Life didn't magically become easier. We still had work stress and parenting challenges. Emma still missed having a biological mother sometimes, and we navigated those conversations with honesty and compassion. Sarah and I had disagreements about everything from household chores to parenting approaches. But we faced it all together, as a family. 2 years after we met, Sarah adopted Emma legally, a day that remains one of the most emotional of my life. Watching my daughter and my wife stand before a judge, declaring their commitment to each other, I realized how far we had come from those dark days when I was barely surviving. And now, as I finish telling our story to the camera, I glance at the clock on the wall. Emma should be home from school any minute now, I say with a smile. And today's a big day. Right on cue, the front door bursts open, and Emma races in, her purple backpack bouncing against her back, her now healed arm swinging freely as she runs. At 8 years old, she's all long limbs and boundless energy, her dark hair pulled into a messy ponytail that's coming undone after a day of school. Dad! Is she here yet? Emma skids to a stop in front of me, barely noticing the camera. Not yet, sweetheart. But soon. I smoothed down her flyaway hair. How was school? Good. I got an A on my science project, the one Sarah helped me with about plant growth. Ms. Peterson said it was the best in the class. Her face glows with pride, then quickly shifts to anxiety. But what if she doesn't like me? What if she cries all the time? I pull her into a hug. She's going to love you. And babies do cry, that's how they talk. Remember we discussed this? Emma nods solemnly. I know. Sarah said it's their superpower, being loud enough that grown-ups have to pay attention. The sound of a car pulling into the driveway makes us both freeze. Emma's eyes widen, and she grabs my hand, squeezing it tight. They're here, I whisper, my own heart racing. We move to the front door together, the camera following our journey. Through the window, I can see Sarah carefully getting out of the passenger seat, while her mother hovers nearby, ready to help. In Sarah's arms is a small bundle wrapped in a yellow blanket. Ready to meet your sister? I ask Emma. She takes a deep breath, straightening her shoulders like she's preparing for the most important moment of her life. Ready. I open the door, and we step onto the porch. Sarah looks up, her face tired but radiant with a joy I've never seen before. Our eyes meet, and something passes between us, a recognition of this new threshold we're crossing together. Look who's finally home, Sarah says softly, approaching with careful steps. Lily, meet your big sister and your dad. Emma stands very still as Sarah kneels down to her level, gently tilting the bundle so Emma can see the tiny face nestled within the blanket. Our daughter, our second daughter, has Sarah's curly hair and my nose, her eyes still the dark blue of newborns, her tiny fists curled against her cheeks. She's so small, Emma whispers, reaching out one hesitant finger to touch Lily's hand. To everyone's delight, the baby's fingers uncurl and wrap around Emma's finger in a perfect grasp. Dad! Look! She's holding my finger. She knows who you are, I say, kneeling beside them, one arm around Sarah's shoulders. She's been listening to your voice for months. Hi, Lily, Emma says, her voice soft and serious. I'm your big sister. I've been waiting for you for a really long time. I'm going to teach you everything, about dinosaurs and planets and how to ride a bike. And I'll always protect you, I promise. Sarah's eyes meet mine over our daughters' heads, filled with tears. I know mine look the same. This moment, this perfect, ordinary, extraordinary moment, is the culmination of a journey neither of us could have imagined when Rick set us up on that joke date 3 years ago. Welcome home, both of you, I say, helping Sarah to her feet while Emma continues her whispered conversation with the baby. As we step into the house together, Sarah carrying Lily, Emma dancing around us with excitement, me supporting them all, I can't help but think about how life's greatest gifts often come disguised as its greatest challenges. My world fell apart when Emma's mother left, but that breaking created space for something new to grow, something stronger, deeper, and more beautiful than I could have imagined. And that, I say, turning back to the camera one last time, is the real end of our beginning. From a single dad drowning in responsibility to a family overflowing with love. Sometimes the joke's on you, in the best possible way. Sarah appears beside me, Lily now sleeping peacefully in her arms, Emma leaning against her side. If you've enjoyed our story, Sarah adds with a warm smile, please like this video and subscribe to follow our journey. Because trust me, with this crew, the adventures are just getting started. The four of us stand together, a family built not from perfect circumstances but from perfect love, the kind that shows up, stays present, and transforms ordinary days into extraordinary lives.